What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be comparing two very different budget phones, the LG K51 and the Samsung Galaxy A01. Now, these are actually some of the more popular, super affordable phones for 2020. They're widely available in the US, with the A01 also being available in places around the world. But obviously, from everything to their design, their size, the specs, the features, and even their Android skins, these phones couldn't be more different. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each device. I'll give you a side-by-side look at everything going on, and hopefully by the end, you can decide if either phone is right for you. To start things off, let's talk about pricing and availability. And right off the bat, this is already where things get a bit tricky. The LG K51 is mainly available right now through US carriers and prepaid networks. The cheapest you can get this phone at the moment is $90 from Boost Mobile, with other places like Metro and T-Mobile trying to charge way more. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to use that $90 price point because, like I said in my full review last week, I think that's the most you should pay for the K51 anyway. With the A01, this phone is actually way easier to get. It's available unlocked from places like Amazon right now for around $100, but a number of wireless carriers in the US, from Verizon to Cricket and a whole bunch more, have this phone for cheaper, even free if you sign up for a new phone number. In general, the A01 is going to be the easier phone to buy and is more widely available, so already that might be the deciding factor for you. It can also be purchased for cheaper too, depending on your wireless carrier situation. But in the end, it's really just going to depend on your unique situation with whatever carrier you have or want to move to. And if you guys are interested in doing some comparison shopping of your own, I'll leave some links down below in the video description to where you can get these phones at their cheapest current prices. So be sure to check down there so you don't miss out on any good deals. Physically, these phones I think are aimed towards two different kinds of people. Those who like big phones and those who like small phones. The K51 is a large 6.5-inch device, while the A01 is a 5.7-inch phone. And side by side, I think you really get an idea of what we're working with. The K51, I think, is actually one of the biggest budget phones you can buy right now, which is great if you're into that. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money to enjoy your content on a big display. On the other hand, the A01 is one of the smallest phones you can buy right now, and in a sea of 6-inch devices, this is a nice change. It's compact, it's comfortable with one-handed use, it fits great in your pockets, and I think it's one of the main reasons why people would choose this phone at all. Design-wise, the front displays are actually set up in basically the same way. You get a similar teardrop notch across the top and larger bottom chin down below, though on the sides, the K51 seems to have a bit more bezel bordering the display, which is one factor that does contribute to this phone feeling so large. But neither phone has any fancy new camera cutout or refreshed 2020 look. You get a very standard budget setup. Around back, again, we're dealing with totally different design cues, but it's important to understand that the materials here are actually the same. Both phones are constructed of plastic, though the K51 has a shiny, polished look that's made to just imitate glass, while the A01 isn't really trying to hide anything. It's a plastic phone all the way around. Fortunately, I don't really think either phone feels cheap at all. Even the A01 is well built, just not as flashy, and more than anything, this is probably just going to come down to a personal choice. For me, I like the look and feel of the K51. I like that sort of faux premium design. At a glance, it just looks a bit better, even though it's technically not. Taking a look around at everything else, on the left side, both phones have the volume buttons, with the K51 also having a dedicated Google Assistant button. On the right, both phones have their power buttons and SIM and SD card trays. On the top, the A01 has a headphone jack. On the bottom, the K51 has its headphone jack, as well as a USB-C port and speaker. The unlocked A01 that I have here has a micro USB port, while some carrier versions have USB-C, so sort of a strange but important thing to point out with that. And around back at the bottom is where you'll find the speaker on the A01. Also on the back, obviously, both phones have a multi-lens camera setup, which I will talk about in a bit. And you'll see the K51 also has a rear-mounted fingerprint sensor. The setup here is solid, it's a good placement, it's fast, and it works well as it should, but you only get the fingerprint sensor on the K51 as far as the biometric unlocking options are concerned. LG dropped Face Unlock completely. On the other hand, the A01 does not have any fingerprint sensor at all, just Face Unlock, which is fairly quick and accurate. It does get the job done. So with this, you maybe have to decide if either unlocking method is something you prefer. When it comes to the actual displays, the screen size is just one side of the story. With the larger K51, its display is an IPS LCD panel coming in at a resolution of 1560 by 720 and packing in around 264 pixels per inch. On the A01, you get a 5.7-inch PLS TFT screen, which is sort of Samsung's own version of LCD, with a 1520 by 720 resolution that crams in 295 pixels per inch. Now, I've talked about the size a bunch of times already. You know if you like having a big screen for content or if you don't mind using something smaller, but what you might be able to pick up here are the differences in color, detail, and also brightness across these two phones. First off, I think the K51 screen looks more colorful, more saturated, but I don't find it as accurate as the A01's. Maybe LG went a little overboard with the colors. I don't mind it, but I know some people praise the more true representation of what's on their screen. With detail, it's tough to see, but since the A01 is packing in more pixels per inch, you do get a slightly sharper looking screen, even though the resolutions are almost the same. They're both 720p displays. That's what you get with a budget phone, but I don't think either looks all that bad. And when it comes to brightness, again, I think the A01 has a bit more to offer. Overall, objectively, the A01 I think has the better offering. Samsung does just a nice job with all of their screens, really. And fortunately, there's nothing wrong at all with the K51. It's just a different approach. Now, one thing LG actually did really well on the K51 is the speaker setup. This phone offers stereo sound, 2 speakers, one down below and one additional one in the earpiece, which is an awesome feature, especially on a phone at this price point. With the A01, you get just one small speaker that I think is placed pretty poorly too around the back of the phone. Here are a couple of samples so you can get an idea of what they sound like. All in all, the K51 offers the better out loud listening experience. It's just not even close, and Samsung I think should have offered something better here even on a phone like this. In regards to their specs, we're dealing with inexpensive budget devices here, so obviously these phones don't have a whole lot, but I think the end result is still a very solid and usable experience for just about everything. The K51 offers the MediaTek Helio P22 processor, 3GB of RAM, and 32GB of built-in storage, with the option to expand via an SD card, though you're kind of limited with LG not allowing apps to be moved to the SD card by default. The A01 offers the Qualcomm Snapdragon 439 processor, either 16 or 32GB of built-in storage, depending on the model you buy, again with the option to throw in an SD card, and just 2GB of RAM. Now here are the Geekbench scores, so you can get a numeric value of the potential here, kind of close, though that Snapdragon processor on the A01 I think is the better choice. With the side-by-side speed test, performance is actually very close. The A01 probably has the advantage in the processor, like I said, but the extra gig of RAM on the K51 certainly comes in handy as you start to load more and more stuff. Obviously, you'll notice these two phones are also running very different styles of Android. First off, the A01 is on Android 10, and my K51 is still on Android 9. Boost Mobile, for some reason, just hasn't offered an Android 10 update on this phone. And you're also dealing with Samsung's One UI versus LG's Android skin. Now personally, I like Samsung's offering a bit more here as far as the software, though realistically with some minor tweaks, they both run about the same. I do think the K51 is worthy of an update to Android 10, and it should get it at some point, which I think can only help in the end. But honestly, even with their low-end specs, I'm pretty happy with the performance. There's just a couple of things to consider here. For one, the base model A01 only has 16GB of built-in storage, which is just way too little, even for a budget phone. That's the model I have here, and the phone ships with like 25% of that storage taken up by Android and other pre-installed junk apps anyway. So basically, after one or two more decent-sized apps of your own, you're pretty much out of space. Though I realize 32GB with both phones isn't great either, so you'll definitely need an SD SD card no matter what phone you choose. And if you want to go gaming on these phones, it is actually possible. Call of Duty Mobile, for example, runs decent on both phones, which surprised me. I was super comfortable playing, and although we got some blips and frame drops every once in a while, and obviously the game took a good chunk of time just to first boot up, you can certainly enjoy some of your favorite games and apps here. Really, it's just going to come down to whether you value the Snapdragon processor on the A01 or if you want 1GB of RAM more and potentially more storage on the K51. It's a tough choice, but I think I may be leaning towards the K51. And when it comes to battery life, we not only get pretty different setups here once again, but also very different real-world results too. The K51 offers a 4,000 mAh battery inside, while the A01 has just a 3,000 mAh battery. Paired with that micro USB charger on this unlocked A01 phone, this device just takes a long time to charge. And unfortunately, to be completely honest, battery life just isn't that good. The K51 not only offers the larger battery, but it makes it through the day and then some. It's an easy decision here. The K51 just offers the better power options. Finally, let's talk cameras. And this is probably where the A01 in particular I think needs the most help. This little guy offers a dual lens setup with a 13 megapixel main lens and 2 megapixel depth sensor. Up front, there's just a 5 megapixel selfie camera. The K51 packs a triple lens setup that includes a similar 13 megapixel main lens, but an additional 5 megapixel ultra wide lens and that 2 megapixel depth sensor. The front camera though is significantly better, a 13 megapixel shooter. On the software side of things, the capabilities are mainly the same: 1080p video, live focus. LG offers a few more options, but with the real world results, it isn't even close. The K51 takes far better pictures. The selfie camera on the A01 is just not good, even for a budget phone, but especially for a phone released in 2020. The rear lens can take okay shots, but when compared to the K51, they just don't look all that good. In the end, I don't think either phone really takes a whole lot great at pictures, but the K51 is simply the far better option in my opinion. It's not even close. So here are my final thoughts on these two devices. I honestly do think both of these phones each have their pros and cons. The A01 is obviously a super compact and easy to use, inexpensive device that's great for calling, texting, web browsing, and most of the simple stuff, though you can push it a little harder if you want. The K51 is a big phone with a big screen that looks really nice too, and with a larger battery and dual speakers, it has some advantages of itself as well. In the end, I personally feel like the K51 is just a better all-around device that offers more value for the money, but I do understand that this phone is just simply not available for everyone. If you have the choice, get the K51, but if the A01 is the only phone you can get, there's really nothing wrong with it, honestly, aside from those not so great cameras. So there you go, that's everything you need to know about the LG K51 and the Samsung Galaxy A01. What do you guys think? Which phone would you prefer? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.